Welcome to Design is Marketing, a podcast for product teams and marketers who want to learn what works and what doesn't when it comes to engaging and converting users. This podcast is brought to you by Sparker, the design agency. If you want to know more about it, check sparker.co. Good morning and welcome. My guest today is Amanda Forssberg. Amanda is a young CMO who has already collected a lot of international experience. She is now CMO of HomePal, and she has a past as previous athlete. She describes herself as exuberant and data-driven. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself, Amanda?
Yeah, sure. So, the athlete background that you mentioned, that was team gymnastics. A lot of fun. I would recommend anyone to, if they're into gymnastics or they have kids with a lot of energy, just throw them into gymnastics. It's great. So about me, I'm based in Sweden. It's also where I'm from. I'm from Stockholm, but currently I live in Malmö in the southern part of Sweden. So my background is in strategic communication and digital media, and I also did my master's at Columbia University in New York, where I also just freelanced a little bit in a social media role. So that was a social media manager position at a small magazine, fashion magazine. And currently, I'm the CMO of HomePal, a prop tech startup. It's a business intelligence tool. We're managing data for real estate industry.
Yeah, that sounds very cool. And we'll get to that in a second. And actually, also later on, I'm curious to know more about your past in the sport as an athlete. But one of the reasons why we're having Amanda today is because of this wide experience that she has. I was quite triggered by the fact that you have an experience as both a freelancer, CMO. So it sounds like you have seen both parts of the industry and also an experience from sales. How would you say that these three things influence each other?
Well, I think from the beginning, it's just all everything stems from the love of people, me just being an extrovert, loving to just learn about people, talking to
So
people.
you're
So I
really a
guess
people person.
I would describe myself as a people
Okay.
person. So I guess sales comes naturally because sales is all about like learning about people and helping them solve their problems. So working in sales, I had this summer job a while back where I worked at IKEA and selling couches and bookshelves and desks and stuff. And that I loved it because you can really just help your clients just achieve something, or customers, I guess. But then obviously that B2C kind of retail industry is very different from the kind of B2B enterprise sales as a SaaS solution that HomePal is. So I guess just getting that variety is just so much fun because you learn something new every single day, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. But so you mentioned the fact that you have a background in B2C and now you move to B2B and the two are different. Don't you have the feeling that the difference between the two is actually getting smaller and smaller?
Definitely, because you know obviously when you're in a B2B kind of realm, you're still selling to people, and I guess back in the day that was not really the perspective on it. It was more like, oh no, companies are different. But I think they say that like when you're in B2B sales, you have to target like 5 to 7 people, or at least 5 to 7 people are involved in the purchase. But those are 5 to 7 different people with all different needs and anxieties and wants and worries about everything. And that's really the same thing in B2C, because you have to address all those things no matter what, if you're in B2B or B2C.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Also, I mean, in terms of product, right? I often hear sometimes still that when it comes to B2B, it's like, oh yeah, that's just a B2B tool, so it doesn't need to offer the same kind of user experience that you would expect. But I always think that's wrong, and I also think that as users, we might work in B2B, but then we go home, we watch Netflix, we listen to Spotify. So that's also the level that we're expecting from platforms. So, do you see this at HomePal as well?
Yeah, I was almost laughing when you said that the user experience doesn't have to be that good because at HomePal we're obsessed with the user experience. We are like all our growth, all our success comes from individuals being super happy with us. We want them to be raving about us to their friends and families, like even not in a work setting. We want them to be like, "Oh my god, I love HomePass so much." So the
Okay. Well,
user experience is so important to us. Yeah,
that's good.
definitely.
Let's get to that because when I met you, you told me that for you, like customer development, customer interviews, and really understanding what users want was crucial. So, well, why don't you tell us about that? Before that, you can tell us a bit more about what HomePal is and what you guys do.
Yes. Okay. So as I mentioned, HomePal is a B2B SaaS solution. It's a business intelligence tool for real estate companies. And the problem that we're helping them solve is getting access to their data, basically. So the situation for a lot of real estate companies is that traditionally the industry has been amazing. It's all green numbers, everything just like going really well for the companies. So traditionally, they didn't really have to innovate that much. I guess it's a very traditional sort of industry. And with that comes now like the digitalization of the industry. And a lot of real estate companies have experienced issues really following that sort of development in the society. So I guess getting access to data has been a challenge because all these different ERPs that they're using aren't really built to export data. They're built to just stay in there, which really makes analytics and intelligence, just like gaining insights, really hard. Because if you have seven different systems that you're using and you have to go into each system every time and just like maybe look at some sort of spreadsheet or whatever in that very system, it takes a lot of time. So what they're doing right
Got it.
now is exporting sort of, CSV files to Excel, and then they're copying and pasting, and people are doing it in different ways, and it takes a lot of time, and people are constantly waiting for their colleagues to finish that report and stuff. So that's really what we're solving.
Got it.
So HomePal is a business intelligence tool providing dashboards with key figures and stuff that's already calculated. So we're doing all the work and it's only for the real estate industry. So we're also like a personal trainer if you compare it to like a gym setting, where we're really just helping them figure out what they need to be looking at, how they should be looking at stuff. Because, these are not like a lot of people are obviously very, very experienced and really know a lot of things about their industry, but they're not data people. People are not really engineers within data, and we're engineers within real estate data. So
Got it.
that's sort of how we connect.
Yeah, so if I hear correctly, basically the problem that you're solving for your users is that they have the data, but the data is silent. So what you have done, you have created a single place where they see the data, and I would assume also the insight. So the level beyond just seeing data. So yeah, how did you get to that point? What kind of user interviews did you run to understand that?
Yeah, so we've been working. very intensely with the jobs to be done framework. And for those who might not be familiar with it, it's all about finding out what your customer is trying to achieve. So, the job, what is their job that they're trying to do? And that could be anything from eating healthier to dressing better or generating more leads and closing more sales. But it's all about figuring out what they really care about because
And how did you do
your
that?
customer.
Did you go
Yeah,
on
so
field? Did you did phone calls? Very curious to hear more about it.
yeah, so I've been doing interviews kind of like this in this setting where I've been talking to our existing clients, just like new clients that we recently closed. And I have been asking a very specific set of questions and really trying to figure out their pain with their current solution, like what is annoying them, what is the problem that they're experiencing, but also what is it with our product that made them do like made them switch, what is it that attracts them with us, and also what anxieties did they have, what were they worried about, what made them almost not buy our solution, and finally also like what made them almost stay, or what makes them happy about their solution, like why
Got
did
it.
they stay so long.
I
So
think it's
it's
very
it's
important.
been
Yeah, I think it's
yeah.
very important what you're saying because what you often hear is that sometimes after the launch phase, a lot of companies kind of outsource customer development. Whereas what I think it's very cool about your company is that you, who are the CMO, were very like directly involved into user research. So did you find a kind of competitive advantage in being involved in this yourself?
Yeah, I really think so. But also, a big part of our company has done this. And I think it's something that lies within our culture that every single person working at HomePal has to know our customers. So, a lot of them, almost all of us, have done these interviews. But we also go through the transcript, we talk about it, we sit in a group and we analyze it together because everybody needs to know our customers. And as a CMO, that is my highest priority and
Oh, that's
my
cool.
biggest job, to know our customers and know what drives them and what annoys them and all that.
Yeah,
So definitely so important, and I would advise anyone working in marketing or anyone being a CMO, just like make sure you know your customers, listen into sales calls, like initiate these jobs to be done interviews, and
yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
just really know your customers.
Cool. Yeah, I remember also from my previous experience when we had this startup. Actually, what really opened for us the connection with this large company that we eventually did business with, it was the fact that we did a level of customer research that they hadn't done before, for which usually they would have hired, a very expensive company. So what was, yeah, funny and interesting in a way is that they didn't only invested in us in a way for the technology, but also really for the fact that before launching the app, we had talked, face to face to like 300 users, even knocked at their doorbell, and we had that kind of insight that they were struggling to have actually. Yeah, so I think it's interesting. But another interesting thing about customer interviews, at least when I talk to people, is that they really find it hard to kind of get in contact with their audience. What worked for you in like collecting people to talk to?
Yeah, I can't say really that that has been a problem for us because
Okay,
our clients were just amazing and they're so willing to offer their
okay.
time.
So they were
But
already existing clients.
yeah, existing
Okay.
clients. But also, actually, before we had a lot of clients to choose from, we sent out emails, like cold emails, to all of the people that we will consider being our target audience. And we emailed them and we said like, hey, we're a startup, we're trying to learn about your industry, and we targeted all these different kind of roles. So I think we had 3 roles or 4 maybe, and we were like, hey, we're trying to solve a big problem for you or for people in your role in this industry. Would you be able to offer 20 to 30 minutes so we can learn from your expertise. And we had an amazing hit rate. It was amazing. It was like 70% said yes or something. And for
Wow.
cold emails, that's like through the roof. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's
Um,
not even
yeah,
unheard
so
of.
I think it might be about like framing. We were like, we're a young startup. We're trying to do this. Like, we know that you have a lot of knowledge. Would you please be able to offer us 20 minutes over coffee or Zoom or whatever? And people are like, yeah, let's
So
go.
what you were doing, you were very transparent and upfront about your goal. You were targeting with a very clear message that was not, say, trying to overpromise, but just saying we're doing this for research purpose. So I guess that also lowered the barrier a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
and
And
I guess what
actually, a
also,
few of them converted into customers later because they're like, oh, but what is it that you do? And we're like, oh, we're doing this. And they're like, hell
yeah,
yeah,
of
tell me
course,
more
yeah,
about that.
yeah. Yeah, cool, nice. Well, another thing that I was very interesting to ask you is about the tactics that you guys are using, right? So you told me
Mhm.
that when it comes to tactics, you're still kind of testing the one that for you would
Yes.
work best. Like, how do you go about testing?
Well, we experiment a lot, iterating. So it's all about, getting that first draft out there and iterating and really just, I don't want to say throw spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks, but it's kind of like that in a startup, as
Okay,
people in the startup realm would know. So yeah, a lot of experimenting, just having a hypothesis, just usually everything comes from our customers. It comes from a question they might have or an issue that we realized, oh wait, so people are having issues doing this, what if we did this instead? So just experimenting a lot and really iterating fast. But yeah, I actually think that doing this and learning how to experiment, because it's a learning process. Before, I think we started really experimenting in a structured way a year ago or something. Before, obviously, we tried stuff, but we kind of changed our tactics around it. And that really helped us gain data about our
okay.
experiments as well. Really see what actually worked and what did our just gut feeling say, because those things are kind of different.
Okay. So why don't you dissect for us the tactics that you use for experimenting in a structured way, as you said?
Yeah, so we actually have like a Google Doc, and we start with like, what is the hypothesis? What are we trying to figure out here?
Okay.
And from there, we say, we think our customers are struggling with X, Y, and Z. And we think that if we did this, that would improve the quality of the experience. Something you're trying to be very specific when you're writing this, because if you're very vague, you won't really be able to figure out if your experiment was successful or not. So we're trying to be very specific, trying to, oh, it's always about making this very specific and small, because as the minute you go wide, you lose kind of the ability to figure out if it worked, I
Yeah, to
guess.
kind of retrospectively say what worked and what didn't, and then it becomes very subjective, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like having a lot of factors that play in makes it hard to know, like, okay, so was it the channel, was it the message, was it the timing, what went wrong, and we don't know, and that's not a successful experiment. So you have to really isolate all those things. So if you realize that, oh, we don't have any takeaways from this, you need to iterate and make it smaller, more specific, or do it again, or all
And what are
different
usually
things.
the factors that you use to measure the impact of your experiments?
It depends on the experiment, of course, but it can be, so say we would ran some messaging on LinkedIn. We ran 5 different ads, I think, to see. It was the exact same ad, but it was a few different things in the messaging, and we had the same target audience, the same people seeing it, and we tried to figure out, like, okay, so which message is more successful here. Um, So looking at that, that's obviously like clicks and views and what are people doing with this ad? Are they ignoring it, or how much, yeah, yeah, sort
Yeah.
of like
Okay.
that.
Yeah, I got it. So really say numbers related to your business metrics, activation, acquisition,
Mhm.
conversion. Got it. Yeah,
Yes.
that's good. So yeah, just to recap, you said you have your Google Doc file where you list your experiments, then you make assumptions on like impact, to try to attach numbers and be as specific as possible. Do you also
Mhm.
make say assumption on the expected level of commitment from your side? Do you use frameworks like
Yeah.
PA or there's eyes or there's thousands of frameworks you
Yeah.
can
So
use.
we're running growth meetings and growth sprints. So I realized that I kind of left you halfway. So we have this document and we run a sprint for maybe 2 weeks or something. It's supposed to be quick.
Okay.
So we have a growth meeting. We talk about the idea and what's in the document, and we assign a leader of that experiment. And something that's really important to us is like experiments fail, and we almost want to fail a lot and often because that means that we're trying a lot of different stuff. If you're afraid to fail, or if your experiment doesn't work out the way you wanted it, and that becomes a culture of like, why did your experiment fail? That's not really helping us grow.
So it's
So
not about
running these
pointing fingers, but more about testing fast.
So
Yeah.
what we do, we sit around the table and we're like, okay, so how can we improve this before we started? Like, can we get more specific, or can we change something to make it make sense more? And then after those 2 weeks, we might do a checkup in between if we feel like it's necessary. But then after those 2 weeks, we'll have a retrospect and we'll be like, okay, so what happened? Why do we think that happened? And we kind of do that analysis because I guess that's almost the most important part, really looking back and being like, okay, so what did we learn from this? And even if your experiment failed, you might have learned something else and then you iterate. So yeah, that's
Okay. Yeah.
definitely a
Got
big
it. And do you also have something like a log of, say, learnings from experiments?
yeah. Yeah, definitely. But I would say that a lot also comes from our customer interviews. We've been focusing heavily. I think I've done like 100 in the past few months. So a
Okay.
lot of insights about our customers comes from there. And yeah, just like trying to figure out iterating in the platform, and also just like monitoring behavior in our platform. And so one thing that we realized was like, okay, so people are having issues logging in sometimes. It seems like that's an issue and it's not supposed to be. So we made a Slack bot that messages us like, oh, someone failed to log in, so we can contact them right away, because we realized that like, okay, so we're losing users because something is too
Because of
hard
login.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were like, okay, so using that Slack message, automated Slack message, we instantly get to know like, okay, so someone is failing right now, and we can contact them and be like, hey, I saw you're trying to log in, did you try this or whatever, and help them right away. And that really made a big difference for us. And
Wow.
also we realized that some people are having issues when they're filtering and when they're doing things in the platform. So we installed an instant chat because we realized that like the threshold to email us was a little bit higher than we would want it to be. So we're like, okay, so if we have a chat and they're like, oh hey, and they know us because we've talked to them so much, so our users, they're like, oh hey Frida, or like any colleague that we're talking to, they're like, oh, can you help me do this? And we're like, hell yeah, let's go. And they're like, oh my god, you helped me so fast, this is amazing, I'm gonna go tell my colleague.
Okay. Yeah. This also latches onto, say, the relationship between product and marketing, right? Which is also a bit the philosophy behind this podcast that I really like product. Say design is marketing, and product and marketing are very intertwined when it comes to the success of a digital product. So I was wondering, so if you take an episode like the one that you mentioned, right, sign up, how involved are you? How involved is product? And also, what's the interplay between the two departments?
I'd say that I'm like this company, HomePal. It's a small company, and I think the culture is very small as well. And what I mean by that is that we're all very involved in a lot of things. And that doesn't mean that I'm responsible, but we're constantly having conversations around things.
Okay, so it's very
It's like
cross-functional
I
in a
don't need
way.
to, sorry,
The
what was
way
that?
it's very cross-functional the way you tackle problems.
Yes, yes. And I think that when you're a small company, that's almost like a criteria. You have to be cross functional, because I cannot be working in a silo being like, oh, but my marketing is this, and then product or sales don't know what I'm doing. That would be very, very hard for us. So we're
Okay.
all very involved. And I get a lot of my marketing ideas and tactics, and like, oh, but if say our implementation lead, she's talking to our customers a lot. She's the one helping them actually get started. And she has a lot of customer contact, and she can tell me something and be like, oh, so this client did this, or I realized that she was having problems doing this, and I'll be like, hey, that's an idea for like a blog post, and we can push it in these channels, and so we're also always just working together in that kind of sense, if
Got
that
it.
makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, being cross-functional is a big advantage, right? It's an advantage that you can have, especially when you're small. I guess there the question is really like, how do you make sure that you keep still this cross-pollination between departments, but still having accountability on one side and clarity so that you avoid confusion, right? So how do you guys do it?
I think we usually assign a leader or assign responsibility. We're very good at that. It's like,
Okay.
you are responsible for this, but you can ask anyone for help. It doesn't mean that you're alone in this and that you're supposed to do something by yourself, but it means that like you're going to continue to drive this. You're going to be the project leader of this, however big or small it might be, but anyone will help you, and anyone will be like, okay, so what are you thinking about this? Can we do this? I have this idea. But I think that having that responsibility, knowing like this is my baby, and being like, but all of us are involved.
Okay.
I
So
think that,
accountability for you has really been the key.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think it's a very good learning. Yeah, good. So, well, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, right, to make it a bit more practical, you told me that there has been an interesting marketing tactic that really worked for you guys. Would you like to tell us
Mhm.
a bit more about what it has been and how it's working for you?
Yeah. So, one of the tactics that we had, we were realizing that to convert these kind of bottom funnel leads, we realized that since it's a big purchase, and this sort of category isn't something you buy often, and it's a big decision, so we realized that if we can
Wait a
put
second. Wait a
the
second. So tell us about what is exactly the purchase and what's the ballpark figure we're talking about.
So the purchase would be like this business intelligence tool that we're providing,
Okay.
and the ballpark for cost, it's really different. At
Do
the
I pay it
moment,
as a subscription or?
yes,
Yeah.
SaaS
Yeah.
solution. So it's a monthly cost, but usually almost everyone pays on an annual basis.
Okay. Got
So
it.
it's a lot of people involved, and obviously you can use other business intelligence tools like Power BI, which is Microsoft solution, or you can use all these different big companies. And I guess going with a small startup is a one sort of risk, but also us being more niche towards their industry is also a benefit. And they see a lot of benefits, but maybe they just need to talk to someone. So what we did is like we started to put our potential clients and our current clients in a meeting. So we match them with like their size and where they're based geographically, and really almost like on a personality basis. We're like, okay, but this guy, he would love to talk to this guy.
Okay. So you made your
Yeah.
existing clients your, let's say, your ambassadors, actually.
Yeah, and that has been something that's really important to us. As I mentioned previously, we want our clients to be raving about us. So when we have a really successful implementation and a really successful activation, we know that this person we can just call them up and be like, "Hey, would you mind speaking to this client?" And they'll be like, "Hell yeah, send them my way." So I guess that's something that's been super important to us. They're sharing stuff about us on LinkedIn. They're talking about us in like,
Well, that's very interesting.
seminars, industry seminars and stuff. And that has been super important to us.
Do you have a system to nurture existing clients or to, I don't know, deliver an extra level of experience? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, we have this amazing person called Niklas, and he's our customer success manager. And I think the success for us here is that we know a lot of our customers on a personal basis. We're still a small company. We don't have that many clients, so we know them and we talk to them. And whenever we're in their geographical area, we'll be like, "Hey, let's get lunch," or whatever. So I think having that really personal relationship, having that really close interaction, like talking to them often and a lot, has really helped us to form that kind of bond and develop that kind of relationship. So we know that whenever they're having issues or we're having like problems activating a lot of different users on the same company, we'll be like, okay, hey, let's figure this out together, because we know that we have a few, like a handful users in every company that love us and would cry the day we like disappeared. So,
Wow.
so
Okay.
yeah.
So you managed to transform your customers into like raving fans, just like you said, by, well, first of all, really understand what they need and how you can serve them, but also
Mhm.
offering a superior level of customer service. So it
Yeah.
sounds like you have really created a loyal base.
Something that's really important to us as well is that we're continuing to kind of educate them. So what we're doing is we realize that they're lacking a sense of community, and a lot of them are really craving that. So what we're trying to do is also help them learn from each other and creating that platform where people can
Okay.
share what they learned all from us, but also in general. So we're really trying to be that platform where we put our clients together in a room and we're like, okay, so let's talk data, let's talk about your current problems and what we can do to figure them out. So for example, we have this one company and they are doing really well in how they're managing their energy data, and we'll be like, hey, do you want to be on like a webinar with us and we can talk about this, and your industry colleagues can just sort of learn from you and what you did and what worked. And that's an important part, because I said industry colleague because a lot of these municipal housing companies that we're working with, or municipal real estate companies overall, they're not competing with each other. They just want this sense of community and they're learning from each other. And that's
Right.
something that's
So
super
there is
important.
also an incentive in sharing knowledges and best
Yeah.
practices.
And it's also like if you did something really good that worked out for you, you want to share. You want to be like,
Yeah,
hey,
and I'll be
this
proud
really
about it.
worked out for us. Yeah,
Okay, so say creating a sense of community has also been key for you.
definitely. Yes.
Wow, wow, that's interesting. So that's, yeah, that's actually really a lot of learning. I think what was interesting, yeah, we have covered really how you do customer interviews in one way, but also once you launch, how you turn your customers into raving fans.
Mhm.
And just to recap, what you said is that for you, superior level of customer service, but also really creating a sense of community has been key in that.
Yeah.
Well, Amanda, really want to thank you for your time today. I think it has been a brilliant interview. I look forward to having you again on the show.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thanks.
Well, thanks a lot. Have a very good day.
You too. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Yeah, that's it.